it's important to me that you also know that we're moving on an even bigger goal. And that is to work aggressively to make a landfill the smallest portion of our solid waste management strategy. We're moving forward on a curbside recycling pilot project. We're moving forward on a feasibility study for materials recovery facility, or MRF, which could accommodate curbside recycling on an island-wide scale. Even though we're strapped for funds, we're looking for ways to move forward on this diversion efforts and others to keep as much material as we can out of the landfill. And remember that each and every one of us take our own steps in our homes and our businesses to reduce, reuse, and recycle. In conclusion, I think we all can agree that there is no good site. There is no good site for a landfill. There is no community that will welcome a landfill with open arms. Each of the 7 sites under consideration has a dozen or more very good reasons why a landfill shouldn't be sited there. However, the fact remains that we must find a site for a new landfill. And that process starts with the first steps we're taking tonight. This is probably the most difficult task any mayor and any council can undertake. However, we have no choice but to act. We've done the studies, and now it is time to act. I have every intention of facing this challenge head-on, working with our community, and coming to a solution that will be in the best interest of everyone on Kauai. I know it can be done. With that, I will turn it back over to Dee Dee. Give her a nice hand, Dee Dee, over here. And mahalo to all of you for participating with us tonight. So we look forward to a healthy discussion. Aloha.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, before we get into the presentation, I know there are lots of people that have concerns about UMI, and as the mayor tried to explain, this is the beginning of a process. As we go forward with the presentation, I'd just like to get a couple of people that would like to share exactly what they'd like to know at the end of the presentation so the presenters can make sure that information gets out. Yeah, sir.
Actually, I have 2 questions, if I might. One is, I know we're going to hear a lot about the environmental impact, but I want to know, have you studied the economic impact of putting 127 acres of garbage in the middle of an agricultural business that employs 70 to 100 people?
Okay.
Second question.
I know this is a really emotional issue, but the more that happens, the less time we have to get your comments out. So if we can hold a pause, that would be great.
I appreciate that.
We'll work with it.
Second question, totally factual. If this is the first step tonight, how do we stop this now before we take any more steps in this direction?
All right. Okay. 2 questions for the presenters as they go forward. Anything else for the presenters to try and cover? As I say, they're going over what happened and where we are. They're not answering questions into the future. That's not what we're here about tonight. Go ahead. And then I have you, ma'am.
After calculating all the points of why Umi is only about 2% above Kekaha, yet Kekaha has a 12-year longer capacity for a landfill. So why is it still Umi #1 just because they're at the top? Because it doesn't seem like that's the best step to go. And we got a whole 12 extra years at another site that's only really a couple of points behind.
Okay. Yes, the sites were all very close. And as the studies go forward, those kinds of things are going to be looked at. Remember, as the mayor said, the committee was only working with old studies and old information. The process going forward now is to look at new information. Yes?
I have 2 items. The first is, if you're using old information,
We will go through all the sites that were looked at, and all the sites will be continued to be studied. So yes, you'll get an answer to that.
I do have my second one.
Okay.
The events that
I knew if I gave you time, you'd come up with it.
The events that have transpired since the committee reported out and since the mayor made his decision, the biggest one being Gay and Robinson stopped sugar production. That's 55,000 acres of land.
Okay. Good ones going forward, and these that go forward will be captured to go into the process. Okay, I see 2 more hands. I'm going to take 2 more hands, and then we got to get going. Because otherwise, we've got a whole hour at the end for more comments. Gentlemen in the back, you've been very patient. Thank you.
I don't think any of us in the rear can hear the question. Is there any way that you can repeat the question or pass the microphone to those who ask the question?
Right now, I will repeat the questions. When we have comments later, the mic will be open. But right now, we really do kind of want to get into the presentation. Yes, you've been patient. Thank you.
I would really like the consultants to go through a thorough discussion of methodology, because I think there are some serious problems.
Okay? We are going to do some work on the methodology.
What's the question?
The question is, she'd like to see, thank you for reminding me. The question is, she'd like to see a thorough study of the methodology used, a discussion on the methodology. Okay, I keep getting hands. 2 more, and then we're going to go. Go ahead, sir. Thank you for waiting.
Yeah, I'd like the group who's going to do the presentation to explain a couple of mathematical issues that I have with the study. Some of the values we're giving 0-point values. If you're using a mathematical weighting scheme, you can't multiply by 0. You'll get 0 no matter what your weighting was. That's a problem. Another item that's a definite problem is most things are weighted or have a point value of 1, 2, or 3. However, you assign implicit weighting, gave double weighting to items by assigning them a value of 0, 2, 4. Okay, those are definite mathematical errors.
So the question is, he'd like to make sure that the presentation explains the difference in the weighting between 1, 2, and 3, 0, 2, and 4, because 0 times anything is 0. So, and I think you will get some more information on that. Okay, last one before we go to the presentation. Yes, ma'am.
When you said that this is the beginning of the process, what's the end of the process? Is the beginning of the process to have us all agree to UMI, or is the beginning of the process to consider other alternatives?
The beginning of the process is to take where the rankings were, go forward into an environmental assessment that is going to look at multiple sites. Multiple sites, not just UMI.
Okay, so it'll go to multiple sites so we can give our whatever input. If the input that we give tonight is valid or any other time, then that will be considered in terms of the decision as to whether it's UMI or some other site. Is that correct?
Yes.
So
I got a nod from the mayor even, so it's not just me saying yes.
So the final decision has not been,
The final decision has not been made.
Thank you.
Okay?